What's going on, everybody? Packer Plug back, and today we're going to be talking about the Packers 2024 NFL Draft. We're going to be going over who they drafted, how this affects the roster, how these players are going to contribute to this season, next season, the years to come, what this means for the current roster, and what this means for the 2024 to 2025 NFL season. Let's get right into it. So the Packers, with their first pick, picked an O lineman. Now, regardless of what you think about this, obviously a lot of fans are going to want you to go for the specialty players, the wide receivers, the running backs, the whatever, because you feel like you need a weapon. I think the Packers went with the O lineman. I think it was a great decision because it's a position you need to really fill now. You've lost your veteran in David Bakhtiari. This O line needs to be improved. It's the start of the Jordan Love era. You have to commit to building that O-line, not only for him, but for Josh Jacobs. You went and you traded and you got Josh Jacobs, and now you have Jordan Love, who's young. You have these wide receivers that are young. You're stacked on offense, in my opinion. The one position you do need on offense is the O-line position. And I think for them to go out there and get an O-line with their first pick in Jordan Morgan, who I think is going to be reliable. I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to grow into a great offensive line player. And then you go and you get two other offensive linemen as well, with Jacob Monk, with Travis Glover. I think it was a great move. With your second pick, you got Cooper, linebacker. Definitely a position that needs to be filled on this defense. And that's what we got to talk about, is how is this defense going to do? I have all my trust in this Packers offense that they're going to be phenomenal. I have all the trust in the world in Jordan Love that he's going to be phenomenal going into the second season. He finished second in touchdowns last season. And our running game, I think, is going to be phenomenal with Josh Jacobs. We also went and we picked up Bullard, who's a safety, with our third pick. And with our fourth pick, we got Marshawn Lloyd, who's a running back. I think that's great. That only contributes to Josh Jacobs. Now, what that means for that third running back position, who knows? Who knows? It's going to be competition, right? It's going because you got A.J. Dillon. So now it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with A.J. Dillon? You could have three running backs on the roster. I think A.J. Dillon's a great contribution to this team. I think he's not a veteran, but he's a veteran. Like, he's been around for a while, so great addition to the locker room. But we'll see what happens with that. That might be the end of A.J. Dillon. Who knows? But with the third pick, you got a safety. And I think, man, you really stacked up on defense. You got another safety in Evan Williams. Okay? You got another safety in, I don't even know if I can say his name. Oladipo, right? Tell me if I'm saying that wrong below. But, man, now I'm not going to say that the Packers went and they killed it, because there's still a lot of things that need to be addressed, especially when it comes to our pass rush and our defensive side of the ball. I think the offensive side of the ball, I think we're pretty set. I think this team is going to be great. I think you went out in free agency, you went and you got a safety, and now you doubled down on that. You got some safeties. You got a late-round cornerback in Kalen King. The Packers also picked up a backup quarterback, which I'm not against, right? I mean, obviously we're not picking him up to replace Jordan Love or anything, but you definitely do need that backup because you just never know. I don't know much about Pratt, but I think it was a smart decision to go and get a quarterback, go and get someone who could be okay and step in and do his thing if he has to. I think this draft really contributed to our offense more than our defense. I think our defense definitely still has some things to address. And I'm not going to say this Packers draft was phenomenal, because it wasn't. It wasn't phenomenal. It wasn't the greatest draft, but it was a good draft. It was a good draft nonetheless. And I'd give the Packers I'd give them like a B plus maybe, if I'm being generous. I don't think it was an A. I think, man, as much as I love that we got O-linemen, as much as I love that we got safeties and we got some linebackers, right? We got two linebackers. The Packers defense really needs to be addressed, because it may just end up being the weaker point, and it was most likely the downfall of us last season, right? I mean, you have Joe Barry gone, right? We have a new defensive coach, and that's great. But you still need the pieces to make it great. And adding to the safeties is going to be great. You got a cornerback, and that's great. And we still got all we need on the defense, right? But in my opinion, the defense could end up being the weakest link in this coming up season. And it's not going to be the offense, because now you're stacked on offense. I don't think Jordan Love's going to have a year where he kind of trails back. I don't think these receivers are going to have any sophomore slumps, because a lot of them is going to be their second year. For Christian Watson, it's going to be his third year. And I think he's going to do great if he could stay healthy and he doesn't have to deal with injuries. I mean, that's been a thing that's been plaguing him for a long time. This offense is not to be worried about at all. And I think we addressed some things on defense in this draft, but I wish we would have maybe addressed it more. It's definitely going to be something that you're going to wonder about, right? I think Jair is going to have an amazing season coming back. And I think Kalen King, hopefully, is going to be another guy that just kind of comes in as a rookie and is able to kind of do his thing. And these safeties are able to do their thing. And, you know, this secondary, I think the strongest point of our defense is definitely going to be the secondary. No doubt. But the pass rush is what's got me worried. We picked up a couple linebackers, and that's great. But I'm definitely still worried about the linebacker position. Last year wasn't the greatest, and you can contribute that to Joe Barry, right? Because we had linebackers that were playing cornerback. It's like, why we got linebackers that are playing cornerback? So maybe this year with a different defensive scheme, you're not going to see as much of that, and our defense will kind of get back to doing what we got to do, playing how we got to play. But the Packers' defense played really well against the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs. They played pretty decent, at least for 3 quarters, against the 49ers. Like, you go back to that playoff game we lost against the 49ers. They played well for 3 quarters. Purdy obviously went off in that last quarter and closed the game out, but they played well. So I think we have the pieces. But it comes down to scheme. And I think the reason we did well in those playoff games is because Matt LaFleur was more involved and the schemes were better, right? Not the players. So I think these additions in the draft only add to that. I think we could do great. I think the one position you still got to address is D-line. So we're going to see how they handle that. We're going to see how this new coach does. But, man, let me tell you this overall after this draft. How I'm feeling about the Green Bay Packers, I'm feeling excited.